Good afternoon, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is Be Heard with Clark. We've been traveling far. I hope you haven't traveled too far. Wherever you are, I hope you're sitting by a computer somewhere, listening to radiotribune.com and the radio show The Herd with Clark. I'm here to offer this show as a forum for people to call in at 702-493-5222 and give us your opinions on solutions to what the problems are that we face today here in the United States of America. We're at a crossroads, I think, in this country to where we have to do one or two things. We have to get this train back on the tracks, going in the right direction, or we're going to continue to go in the wrong direction. And if we continue to go in this liberal progressive ideology that has entrenched us for the last 7.5 years through the Obama administration and through the last 2 years of Bush's administration, where the Congress and the Senate have been taken over by the liberal progressives also, let's not forget about that's been going on since '06. For 10 years now, we've been led by liberal progressives, the likes of Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Barney Frank, Chris Dodd, all those little characters that caused the collapse of this country, economically and morally and everything else. We have a president that cannot, for whatever reason, call a terrorist, can't refer to them as Islamic terrorists, which is what they are. Now, I'm sure in history, particularly, there were Christianity terrorists. I'm sure there were. But that doesn't mean all Christians are bad. It just means that the ones associated with terrorism are bad. This is not a hard theory. This is not rocket science to figure out, people. It only becomes complicated because the mainstream media is trying to steal your mind so you can no longer think with common sense. They try to change the language. They try to change the words. They parse words. They take a word from here and a word from there, mix it all together, comes out with a completely different meaning than what it was supposed to mean. This is what they do. The progressives. See, progress is a good word. We're going to make progress. That sounds great. What a good idea that is. But when you put IVE with it and call yourself a progressive, what you become is a liberal in sheep's clothing. And you become completely opposite of what progress is. Progress, maybe the way they interpret it, is progress for themselves, because everything that these liberals do is for themselves. Take a Hillary or a Bill Clinton, what have you, everything is for themselves. You hear Obama do a speech. It's I, my, I, continuously. It's not about anybody but him. He's down over there in Martha's Vineyard, I guess now, in his annual little charade over there, where he ties up the whole island. Every time he makes a move, goes here or there. He's probably out playing golf right now. Ties up the whole town. It's for him, My, I. What a pathetic leader this guy's been. It's the worst ever that I've been ever associated with. Absolutely the worst. Prior to Mr. Obama's arrival, there was a guy named Jimmy Carter who had the accomplishment of being considered the worst president ever. During his reign, he had 21% inflation. Interest rate was in the high teens. All the junk bonds and all that stuff came to pass because of his economic policies. He's the one that sent a bunch of helicopters over to the desert that couldn't fly in sand. He was quite the leader. A peanut farmer from Georgia. Nothing is wrong about peanut farmers in Georgia, but this day and age, they don't usually try to become presidents. It's like a one-term, not even a one-term, a few year senator from Chicago, Illinois, trying to pass himself off to be qualified to be president. And now he has the audacity to stand on a stage at the White House next to the Prime Minister of Singapore, P. Lee, I think it was, and has the audacity to say to the American people and the cameras that Mr. Trump is unfit to be president. in front of a foreign leader. What a despicable uh, excuse this guy is to be a president of the United States. When he first got elected, he went around on the apology tour, we call it, bowing to leaders of foreign countries, some of them enemies of ours, like Kerry has been seen doing also, bowing to other leaders. I mean, these people are out of touch. They don't see the real world. I can remember Kerry back in the days there with the Vietnam. He was spilling the beans on what had gone on over there in Vietnam, and really turncoating a lot of his fellow soldiers and everything. The guy's pathetic. These people, these liberals, they attract a certain element. People like Elizabeth Warren, who I think anyone with eyes could see when she was on the DNC stage at Hillary's convention there. She's a bitter bitch. There's just no other way to put it. Pocahontas. A liar trying to get into Harvard on false credentials, if you will, that her high cheekbones made her an Indian, so she, affirmative action or whatever. And we all know, I guarantee you, that if the transcripts of Obama would surface, not that it's going to mean a hill of beans, but it's going to prove that we were all right when we said Obama is a fraud. He produced records to the universities like these top Ivy League schools that he got into with what I don't know. He passed himself off as a foreign exchange student. That's the way he got into these universities, probably with poor grades, having smoked marijuana and everything else religiously, as he said in his book. He's a fraud. He is an absolute fraud. And if it wasn't the fact that the liberals are protected by the mainstream media, the press, if the press is going to be with you, then you probably get elected. If they're going to be against you, you don't have much of a chance. The only thing that's going through this cycle that we're in the midst of now is Donald Trump is so strong on his own merit with his own money that he's been able to get further down the road than anybody else by beating back the mainstream media, by exposing them to what they are. He exposes them every day for their lies and misrepresentations that they make to the American people. It's just a pathetic display of untrustworthiness is what our mainstream media has become. Every day you can see the New York Slimes and the Washington Post, and the things that they publish are just absolutely in left field. This Khan character that they were making such a big deal about at the DNC, I call him a character. I know he's the father of a fallen soldier, so no disrespect meant whatsoever, but I don't respect him. His son's probably, I'm sure, a fine soldier. He was a captain at a fairly young age, so he must have had some, very good qualifications, I'm sure, and gave his life for America. And that's commendable, no doubt about it. But his father is an immigration lawyer. Key word there, lawyer. First of all, puts him in a position where he's not on my favorite list, that's for damn sure. And lawyers operate on a different type of world than I'm familiar with. They're snakes for the most part. Their whole position is to take opposing views and fight one side of an argument compared to the other. And after doing that for a while, you end up with you don't know what the truth is anymore, and you just fight whichever way you can, because at some point that's all you know. And the laws go out the window because those are those pesky little things in black and white that you have to figure out how to get around, and that's what lawyers do. Anyways, Khan is a Shiite, Sharia law backer, if you will. Some of the speeches he's given over the years have come to surface, and this guy was a paid, hired hand to go up there and knock Trump with his little Constitution in his pocket. Give me a break. That was all a choreographed show is all that was, and it was pretty pathetic. You know, the liberals really, you have to stretch straws now and then, trying to just grasp at anything. When they go after Melania Trump, trying to make her out as not a legal citizen somehow. First of all, she went through the process to become an American citizen. She was very attractive when she first came to this country. She was an international model. I don't know of our immigration policy back then or the work permit policies or any of that, but one can only imagine that if you're coming over here in a type of an environment, probably where you have a fairly substantial organization behind you, as far as modeling, international type representation. I'm sure that she came into this country well credentialed, and I'm sure with her looks and established background that she was well received by everybody. And when she wanted to become an American citizen, I'm sure she was well received by everybody. And when she married Donald Trump, I'm sure she was well accepted by everybody. And now, because of the despicableness of the progressive liberals on the Democrat side of this whole equation, who will deteriorate and just distract from the issues that they make, they're picking on her. And that you're talking about grasping at something there that is just laughable. It's laughable. These people are so out of touch with reality. It's a joke, okay? It's an absolute joke. And that's what is just so despicable about what this country has deteriorated into. And we have a choice of any party, really. We shouldn't have any parties. We have to get rid of those organizations because they're a cancer on our society. It's like a lawyer, two lawyers in a room. You heard of the town that was too small for one lawyer, but just the right size for two. Because when you have two lawyers, you're always going to have a fight. And that fight will probably never end, especially if someone's got money to pay for the lawyers. It's never going to end because lawyer A is going to talk to lawyer B, and they're going to work up something that one and the other can file and reply to that, and they're going to work up billing hours so that they can get as much money as possible. And the whole thing comes to an end when both of their clients run out of money. That's the way the game's played, and that's what's happening. And this is just an absolute. We have to do. Our legal system needs to be reformed. We're the only country in the world right now that has a policy, a doctrine, I guess it's called, where everybody pays their own legal fees. That's the American rule, they call it, and it's there today because it's been protected by the ABA, American Bar Association lobbyists in Washington, D.C. that get big bucks to make sure that no congressman and no senator, if there's ever any legislation that comes forth, that will do away with the American rule, because that's the mainstay of the base of their whole economic survival for lawyers, is that everybody pays their own legal fees. That way it opens up the door to increase the amount of lawsuits filed. Every place else in the world has a loser pays. So you have to do some thinking. If you're going to file a lawsuit against somebody and you don't prevail, not only you're going to have all your expenses, you're going to have the expenses of the opposing party that you sued and lost. You're going to have to pay all their expenses. And that's the way it is in the rest of the world. And I'm sure if you looked and took the time to do research, you would find out that litigation everywhere else in the world is not at the point of breaking as it is here in the United States. Our whole legal system has been hijacked by the players, which are these lawyers, who some become judges, so the judges are in on it because they used to be lawyers, and it's all part of the same system of despicability where it's all about the money, it's all about everybody pays their own fees, and that opens up the Pandora's box to where all you have to do if you're a crooked lawyer is file a case against some big deep-pocketed corporation or what have you, and they'll settle out of court because it'll be cheaper for them to do that than fight you. So you get a big payday. Your client gets some of it, not much of it, but some of it, because your fees and expenses are going to just eat it all up. It's kind of like a accounting deal when you do a Hollywood movie and you get a percentage of the profits. Yeah, good luck on that one. Anyways, they end up with most of the money, and that's the system. That's the American rule in this country. And it has to be changed. We have to go to loser pays, and we will cut our lawsuits well in half and probably a hell of a lot lower than that. They're going to put a lot of lawyers out of work, and they'll just have to find jobs if they can, because they're probably not even qualified to do that, washing dishes or gardening or something, because I don't know what else they do, because their profession sucks. At any rate, and I have personal experience on that I can tell you about. For 3 years now, I've had a case that was over 3 years ago, over. I won the case, I'm the prevailing party. I proved in a court of law that my sister was stealing money from me. Very simple. It took me 1.5 years to get the bank records that she was refusing to let up because she knew they would hang her. And through my own expense, which was significant, I was finally able, through subpoenas and so forth, get these records. If I had a normal judge, in this case, he would have compelled my sister to produce a bank statement, which he never did. All he did was extend discovery deadlines so that the lawyers could amass more bills and more bills and more bills with these continued extended deadlines to get discovery, which is just a billing process that the judges and lawyers are all in on to extend the controversy so that it just gets billed higher and higher and higher and higher. This is a despicable system. When you're part of it, you're a plaintiff as I was, there's nothing that you can do about it. You kind of have to let the gamut run, because if you back out in the middle of this thing and say, screw this, then you're going to be responsible, and they're going to come after you for all the money and everything else, so you're stuck. This court system doesn't work, particularly in Nevada. It's the worst friggin' thing I've ever seen. And if you're thinking of filing a suit in Las Vegas, Nevada, or anywhere in Nevada, as far as I can see, don't, because you're taking your life in your hands. This is a vicious, vicious, despicable, illegal enterprise, and I'm going to file a RICO action lawsuit against the state of Nevada and a lot of other players that have been involved in this scenario, and we're going to see where that leads to, because the whole implication of what kind of cases now fall under RICO, when you have a criminal, well, you have, when I say criminal court, let's not get confused, because there's courts that just handle criminal cases. But in this particular case, this was a civil case for misappropriation. Very, very, it's hard to imagine a simpler case. Show us the bank records, we'll see where the money's been going. Oh, it's been going in your pocket, and you've been stealing money, you've been misappropriating money. That's it, you lose, end of case. So that's what this case was all about. But lawyers, you see, there was just a little too much money involved in this case for them to overlook. So they pounded up the bills, extend discovery, extend discovery. We had actually, after 4 extensions of discovery, through my yelling and screaming, we finally got an order to compel, signed by a magistrate. Finally, it took 2 years, 1.5 years. We finally got this order to compel. And what does my lawyer do because he's in on it? He cancels the hearing because the other lawyer on the other side agreed to produce the documents. So we canceled the hearing before the magistrate that was going to rule on this compel order. And then guess what? They didn't produce the records. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's unbelievable. The finagling and the getting around the laws and doing things to just pound up your bills is pathetic. This is a pathetic, pathetic court environment in this state. It's pathetic, completely illegal, way beyond the bounds. Anyways, now for 3 years, the case has been over, okay? Now, I was awarded money, and I'm still waiting on it. I have not gotten paid yet. But there's money sitting here that the first judge, a Judge Earl, Alan Earl, completely unqualified to hear the case he heard in this case. He had no experience whatsoever with this kind of a case. He's a construction defect judge. He had no experience as a lawyer or as a judge in anything like a trust case or family law or banking or any of that stuff. He knew nothing about it and said so in court that he was learning as he goes. That's a great judge to have, huh? Boy, oh boy. I should have jumped up right then and shot my mouth off. But being the nice person I am, I let my mouthpiece do the talking, and all I got was shafted. But what have you. So for 3 years, here's what we've been fighting over. This Judge Earl made the ruling to remove my sister as trustee. He agreed that I owned half of the trust, she owned the other half, and she was stealing money from my half. So he called her not competent to be a trustee. Not competent. Well, there's a word for that. It's also called breach of fiduciary duty, because she was stealing my money that was put in her supervision as a trustee. So she violated her fiduciary duty. She breached her duty, period. It's a breach. You can call it not competent or whatever you want to call it, but it's still a breach. The reason the judge did that is because he knew full well that if he called it a breach, a statute comes into play in regards to legal fees. If a trustee breaches their duty, they are responsible to reimburse to the trust all expenses, time, fees, whatever is involved that she caused the trust, has to be repaid. All my legal fees have to be repaid by her personally. She can't use trust money and can't use anybody else's money in the world, believe it or not. Some of these judges don't realize that, but that's the way the law is. It has to be that way. Anyways, for 3 years now, legal fees have been mounting almost on an hourly basis, up and away, as these lawyers fight and wrangle with this motion and this objection and that objection over legal fees are mounting. The case has been over for 3 years. And what are they arguing over? They're arguing about legal fees. How are they going to get paid? And this thing went under appeal. And then the appeal comes down. I win the appeal because I'd asked for clarification on whether this word that Judge Earl used, not being competent, was a breach. And lo and behold, the appellate court agreed, confirmed, if you will, that not being competent is a breach, or misappropriation is a breach. Doesn't matter what you call it, a misappropriation is a breach of duty. So, guilty. So she lost, I won, and the appellate court also confirmed that there was an award that needs to be returned to the trust that I own half of, and it's never been returned to this day. But at any rate, that's the final outcome and the appeal and everything. I win again. Of course, all the lawyers are saying I didn't win because they just lie. They'll never address the situation as it is. They won't talk the truth because the truth hangs them. So they just don't talk about it, they ignore it, or they lie about it. This other opposing attorney, I don't know what he's opposing over, because the case has been over for 3 years. He's opposing to me being paid the money that was decreed me. That's what he's opposing. That's called vexatious litigation, because the case is over. How many times have you got to win a case? Litigation would never end if you have to keep winning the same case over and over again. I won. The money that's sitting here in this bank that was illegally obtained through Judge Earl's illegal orders is sitting here is all my money. Nobody has said it's not my money, but they're trying to assess me with legal fees to lawyers that are not my lawyers. They're the losing lawyers. So who the hell are they to tell me to pay them? They're not my lawyers. I'm the prevailing party. I'm the judgment creditor. They owe me. I don't owe them. And then this other lawyer, he's putting in these objections to me being paid, which is causing me more legal fees on my side of the aisle, which are uncalled for, and it's vexatious litigation. So technically, by law, the other side owes me reimbursement of my legal fees that were incurred as a result of their objection to having me get what's already been awarded to me through litigation. Now we have another famous Nevada District Court judge who's as incompetent as the first one. He comes from a background of being a prosecutor. What that allows him to be able to sit on the bench and make a decision regarding a civil matter, I have no idea. I don't see any words in his background that he has any experience there or with business or anything of that nature in litigation. So what his qualifications are, I don't see any, and it certainly appears by hearing him and listening to him in court, he doesn't have any. And apparently he's been listening to the side of the attorneys over there that want to be paid, having been a lawyer himself, I guess, I don't know. But at any rate, he said to me in court one day last year that you have to understand something. He was giving me a lecture because I was objecting to the fact that he's considering awarding money to lawyers in this case that had no standing in the case. The lawyer that was there, it was an estate attorney because my sister's first attorney died. So this guy was an attorney for the estate of a dead lawyer who just happened to have represented my sister when she lost the case to start with. And this guy thought there was some money lying around that he might be able to get. So he took over the case. He inherited the case from the dead lawyer. So at any rate, whatever money you think you can get, go after my sister and get it, because, you know, whatever, good luck on that one. She's never paid anyone a quarter in her life, and she couldn't pay herself a quarter, because you don't have it. Pathetic, pathetic situation to have something like this run so far amok, all because judges and lawyers are in cahoots trying to get paid to the system so that the lawyers can turn around and contribute to the judges' campaigns, I guess. This state has a big, big problem with their legal system because it's flat ass broken. When you can go on for 3 years with lawyers putting in bills, arguing with other lawyers, putting in bills, all about their bills for legal fees, being paid from whom, and there's nobody to pay them because the only things involved here are me, and I'm not paying their lawyer fees, and my sister who owes everybody everything and doesn't have a quarter, and a trust, a family trust, actually 2 of them. One is what the case was about misappropriation of that money. It wasn't about the trust per se, it was about the fact that the trustee was stealing money. So it was a personal case against her personally, individually, and she lost, and she owes me the money. And she owes all the legal fees, 100%. By law, New Hampshire statute states that when there's a breach of fiduciary duty, the trustee has to reimburse all the money that's been expended. Period. Simple. End of case. But of course, lawyers and judges, they don't see it that way, especially when they're the ones that are looking to be paid. They're going to ignore that. So what they do in this case is they point to another statute in New Hampshire, which is after the first statute that awards legal fees in a situation of a breach, but they point to another statute that has nothing to do with the breach. Well, that's nice. That's a nice try, guys. But you know, when you have a statute that specifically zeroes in when there's a breach, you kind of have to go to that statute. You know why? Because there was a breach. You can't go to a statute that doesn't concern a breach. You know, but they're just so deplorable. I can't describe to you how out of order these players are. They're totally illegal. They're worse of the worst bank robbers anybody. They're Jesse James in a pinstripe suit, if you will. This is pathetic, pathetic, pathetic. And black robes. Jesse James in a black robe. Or Willie Sutton, a famous bank robber. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Why do these lawyers and judges rob trusts? Because that's where the money is. But the whole reason for a trust is to protect against situations exactly like this. You put your money in trust to hold it for your heirs to protect it against litigation. And the litigation could be caused by stupid heirs, if you will, people that don't know how to handle sending money because they never had anything. Because the reason they never had anything is they never could make anything on their own. Perfect example, my sister, she couldn't give you a quarter today because she doesn't, not that she wouldn't want to, she don't have it. She's pathetic. But anyways, so this thing's been going on now for 3 years, and what's been going on, motion after motion, objection after objection over legal fees, piling up, and there's no one that's going to pay these fees. And these lawyers and judges are too stupid to realize that they're not going to get blood from a rock, that eventually all this stuff's been decided by the U.S. Supreme Court, which is the binding, controlling precedent, if you will, in this country, and that's what's going to have to stand up sooner or later. It's just going to have to. Every state in the country, by their virtue of them having sovereignty, they agreed to abide by all of the highest court's decisions in the land, which is the U.S. Supreme Court. So by the Constitution of Nevada, Article 1, Section 2, they have to abide by the U.S. Supreme Court binding precedences. Well, there's one in a case that concerns trusts, and that basically says the bottom line is that no state can control another state's trust created and governed in another state. You just can't control it. That's it. It's too bad. That trust belongs to the sovereignty where the trust was created, and which designation is a choice of law. There's no way around that, guys. You know, but they're trying, because that's the only chance they have is to ignore that. Well, I'm not going to ignore it. So I'm the one that's doing the situation where I'm preventing them from being paid. So they use that as an excuse that I'm the cause of all these legal fees, when the opposite is the truth. They're the ones that are causing all this. All they got to do is realize they're not going to get paid, and they'll walk away, because they're not going to get paid. Legally, you cannot get paid, and the law is going to mean something sooner or later. Pure and simple. That's just the way it is. So, you know, it's like that Kim Davis from Kentucky. She was working as a court clerk in some little town in Kentucky, had the job for quite a few years, and then the Supreme Court had the wisdom, or miswisdom, or whatever you want to call it, to pass that gay law of marriage now, to where people that couldn't have children, which I always thought was one of the basic reasons to be married, but anyways, decided that people of like sex can now be married. Makes a lot of sense to me. But anyways, now she refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples on religious grounds. It was against her religion. Understandable, you know, all people have different kinds of religion, but those were her beliefs, and she's entitled to them. And I think that her constitutional rights gives her protection in that basis. But the Supreme Court focused in on a, I guess, political agenda, if you will, which no court should have a political agenda, but, you know, when you have a system like we have, that's what you end up with, is a political court, and that's the worst thing in the world you can have. But anyway, she ended up going to jail for 5 days because she refused to issue marriage licenses, which I guess was in her job description, because it would go against her principles of her religion. I think she has a good case. But anyway, she was thrown in jail because she did not obey the law of the land, which is a Supreme Court decision. Well, here, through these judges of the District Court in Nevada, they're not obeying the law of the land. They're not obeying United States Supreme Court decisions or the Constitution of the United States, either one. So they're in direct violation of the law of the land. They are pathetic. They're criminals, is what they are. And here they go. And they've been doing this now for 3 years, and I sit back and I watch. Now I have a lawyer, he wants to be paid to keep this charade going. I go, I'm not paying you. I want my money. I'm not paying you. You charged the other lawyer over there for vexatious litigation. And I even found precedences that point to the fact that when you've won a case, you went to court, you spent your money, you won a case, you got a judgment, and now all that needs to be done. And the funny thing with this is the money's sitting in the bank, so the money's there. It's my money. It was derived from stock that my family left to me. So my sister got her money, and I've never gotten mine, and it's sitting in the bank. So just give me the money, that's it, that's all you gotta do, give me the money. But judges and lawyers just can't do that. If they see money sitting someplace, they want it. It's like the government. All money is the government's money, and they just allow you a little stipend to live on or whatever. All money is the government's. And if they're gonna pass a tax cut, see, they wanna know how to pay for it. Well, wait a minute, what do you mean pay for a tax cut? Why does it have to be paid for? You don't have it yet. You know, I mean, what do we, everything is backwards in this government. It's so distorted. Everything is upside down. And this case is turned into an absolute established, documented situation where lawyers and judges are in a scheme to steal money from an out-of-state trust. And there's even more. It gets very good because there was a trust, there was money being stolen that belonged to the trust, that was a particular trust with a name to it and two owners, and it was proven that what was alleged was happening, and the trustee got removed, and it ended up with a judgment in the favor of the plaintiff. That's me. I won the lawsuit. Now, there was another trust that owned property in New Hampshire, real property in New Hampshire. This incompetent Judge Earl decided to get the lawyers paid, which was the most important thing to his agenda, that he would dictate that that home outside of the state of Nevada borders be sold to pay Nevada lawyers inside the state of Nevada on another case under another name concerning another trust with different owners. This would be laughable if it didn't happen. It would be laughable. And it's kind of like we're at the point now where it's a what? I missed something. What? This can't be done. This is where we are. We're at the end of the road now. We're at the point where, what? How can this be? A year ago, the Las Vegas Tribune wrote an article, front page, and the headline was, Nevada judge lacks subject matter jurisdiction. That was a year ago, almost to the day, August 12, 2015. Las Vegas judge lacks subject matter jurisdiction. That was a year ago. The appellate court just weighed in. Now, you have to remember, this is a new court. They've only been around for a year. And their job, if they can, any way possible, protect the lower court's rulings. In other words, protect the District Court of Nevada rulings and the judges and so forth. And only under very egregious circumstances would you ever vacate or overrule a judge's ruling. So they have a propensity to go to great lengths to try to parse words and not really direct the appeal in the right area of what the briefs were saying. And they try to obfuscate or convolute their decisions. And that's exactly what they did in my case, because you could read this thing and you can see that they're fighting hard to agree with a judge who was out in left field and not agree with a plaintiff who won the case. So this is a very funny appeal to begin with, and it probably somewhat confused the appellate court, because why is the winner of a case appealing it? Well, very simple reason. I asked for clarification over the word not being competent compared to misappropriation and breach of trust. I wanted a clarification that a misappropriation was a breach of trust. And guess what? The appellate court had to agree with me, because to not would have made them look stupid. And they just, it only can go so far. I mean, that would have been ridiculous, okay? A misappropriation is undeniably a breach. And there's a statute. And a statute in New Hampshire addresses that when there's a breach, the breaching party is responsible to pay all the expenses and fees associated with that breach. Very simple language. And it's a statute. It ends with 1002. Now, the appellate court names that statute. They put it in there, 1002. Goes to a breach. But then they go on to say, not in these exact words, but there's another statute that's a little more broad and more to our liking, which was 1004. Well, 1002 really precedes 1004, especially when 1002 mentions the word breach, which was the case. 1004 doesn't mention breach. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even mention a case like this one was, because it's more or less a third-party case where someone's suing a trust to attack a trust. And it's not intertrust, it's not the beneficiaries suing one another, or a breach of trust, nothing like that. So they like that one better, so they point to the 1004. And then they have another sentence they throw in there. However, we don't feel that that would have made any difference to the outcome of the case. Okay, so they're covering up. They're trying to cover up for the fact that Judge Earl made a mistake. He didn't call a breach, And they're going to try to cover up for that by saying, well, we don't think that would have made any difference to the result of the case. Well, how about this one for a different result? The case is over with. I won the case. I'm the prevailing party. And the reason the prevailing party is suing or appealing is because the awarding of attorney fees in the way it was awarded was totally illegal by statute in New Hampshire. That's the appeal. So it wouldn't have anything to do with the outcome of the case, but it sure as hell would have something to do with the outcome of the appeal, because that was the issue under appeal. But that wouldn't help them, cover up for the judge. But anyway, that's what they said. But they also said that a breach was a breach, a misappropriation was a breach, and that's really all they need to say. Their other observations are irrelevant. So anyways, I won the appeal. You wouldn't know that by listening to the opposing counsels in court looking to try to be paid somehow, and you wouldn't understand that by listening to the judge, in this case now William Gephardt, say that, well, doesn't this make everything moot in this case, the appellate? Well, yeah, it really does, Judge, make it all moot, but it makes it moot against the lawyers over here looking to be paid. The prevailing party won before, they won again, and you have to award him the money that he was decreed in the first case. It's simple, it's the way it is. But not according to Judge Gephardt. He's contemplating how is he going to get around the law and do this and actually steal my money. That's what the judge is contemplating. How is he going to be able to steal my money? Of course, what the judge is trying to push everybody towards is some kind of an arrangement where we have these settlement conferences where we talk about how this is going to be settled. Now, what that means is all the lawyers can get together and have this settlement conference. Of course, their meters will all be running, and they'll think that they're going to be charged all their fees for this meeting and settlement conference, and their fees are only going to mount up, and then at the end of the day when things are settled, of course, they're going to get some of their money paid. Well, the problem with that is there's nothing to relitigate here. This has already been litigated. The prevailing party is won, and all he wants now is his money that's actually sitting here in a bank. That's all his money. So give him his money. That's the only issue. There's nothing to be settled, okay? That's not required. It's been litigated. He won. Give him his money. That's the way courts are supposed to work. Of course, some courts don't want it to work that way because it means that their lawyers, who are the only parties that can turn around and contribute to the judge's campaigns, are not going to be paid. So that's the last thing the judge wants. That's the last thing all the lawyers want. And the only one that seems to want this is me and my oldest son, who are beneficiaries and don't want the corpus of the trust depleted, because it can't be depleted. It's a spendthrift trust. It's nobody's money, technically, until we receive it, and the lawyers are fighting over something that they can't have access to. And the case is over. It's been over with for years. But it's almost to the point where it's fun to sit back and watch these idiots trying to rummage around, trying to figure out how they're going to do something, and there's no way that they can do it. But it's getting to the point also where this is a sad real-life experience that shows to how broken the entire system is. This is a pathetic display of courts run amok. There's never been anything as bad as this. This is outrageous. And it's all documented. It's all in black and white. And it's to the point now where it's to the unbelievable point of how far is this going to go. So if this Judge Gephardt rules some illegal ruling, which I'm sure he'll do, it'll be just a matter of appeal, again, to the appellate court or the Supreme Court. Let the Supreme Court bounce it down again if they want to. It didn't work out too well the first time. And let the Supreme Court explain, or the appellate court, explain to Gephardt and all these lawyers that any state in this country is completely without jurisdiction to directly affect a trust created and governed in another state. It's not possible. End of story. This never was a case. Not a trust case. It was a case against an individual for misappropriation, which was won. It was ended in a decree. And I'm the prevailing party and I want my money. That puts them in a bad position because they're not going to get paid. Well, that's their problem because if they were competent and maybe not so greedy and money hungry to start with, they would have made an effort to determine that, wait a minute, where's the money gonna come from at the end of the day to pay my fees? They were so awestruck by a few $1 million lying around in trust that they thought somehow they were gonna be able to get a piece of that action. Now, the way they do that, of course, is they try to muddy the waters. They make the case so complicated with all these motions and replies and everything flying all over the place that at some point everyone's going to get tired of the mounting legal fees and there's going to be a settlement made. The settlement word is a dream for the lawyers because that's what they want, settlement. Because a settlement means is they're going to get paid because they make that part of the settlement. So it won't be settled unless they're going to get paid. Well, this case is not ever going to be settled. That's the reason I took it to court. There was no settling with somebody that doesn't have any money, who's a thief and a liar and a cheat and a fraud. That's my sister. You look her up in the dictionary and that's her picture there under all those words. She is a fraud. So I knew that. I've known her my whole life. Not my whole life, her whole life. I'm 9 years older than her. So I used to see her sitting on the bassinet going, I wonder what this is. Well, I found out. But anyways, I know that. I knew that from day one. The lawyers didn't know that, and these ambulance chaser type lawyers that my sister hired, who took the case on a contingency and lost, are now all pissed off that they can't see a way to get paid, and they're fighting and fighting and fighting and hoping to death that this judge is going to order some sort of a settlement, but this judge can't order a settlement. He can't order me to settle something. I have rights. I have constitutional protected rights. And if he does anything that goes against my rights, he's going to face an appeal. And it's an appeal he's not going to win. And then he's going to be slapped left and right. And let me tell you something. I'll make sure when it comes to his re-election time that the constituents in this town know what kind of a pathetic, illegal judge he is. And he better start looking around for a job, go back into prosecution or whatever, because that's his only background that I can see. But anyway, he's certainly not qualified to be a district court judge in any state, in my opinion, because he's an illegal judge. Judge Earl's retired. He retired for health reasons, probably something to do with mental conditions. But anyways, he's no longer a judge. So that problem has been eliminated for some poor future litigant that would have been unlucky enough to draw him in something, because that guy's pathetic. Said in open court one day that he had absolutely no experience in any case like this as a lawyer or as a judge. So I'm learning as I go. Now this case had gone on through health reasons and stuff and all kinds of things. The defense attorney being drunk some days couldn't go on, and the judge being sick sometimes for a month at a crack. This simple case went on for like 6 months. And then at the end of that period, the judge says he has no clue of what he's doing. That's pretty pathetic. That's pretty bad. You're on the air, Radio Tribune.
Hi, this is Sharon, your local Google specialist. We have a front page position available for a business like yours.
Did you hear me say you're on the air?
Page placement.
Oh boy. Wow, that was a nice call. Anyway, anyone really wants to call us, 702-493-5222. If you're not a Google specialist, our lines are open. Anyways, we're getting down to the end of the show. I thought I'd bring you up to date on the legal system here in Nevada. My case has been over for like 3 years. I'm just trying to get that message to the judges and lawyers who are fighting it, because they're all about money, you see, and they want to get paid, and they don't have any way of getting paid. So that's their problem, and they're going to have to face reality sooner or later. And I don't know if they'll be able to or not, but we'll see. Pathetic situation, I'll tell you that. Absolutely pathetic. And we have all this stuff going on with the Trump and the election. And I'd like to leave you with this. Donald Trump came into this thing,
as an outsider. And he had instant traction because of that one fact. He's not an insider. He's not been in politics. He's not held elected a job. He's created a big company, very successful. If you notice, he kind of flies around on jets and helicopters and stuff with his name on the side of it. I don't remember Obama running a campaign like that, or Hillary Clinton, or anybody else for that matter. He's a very successful businessman. That's what we need in this country. And above all else, we need an outsider that's not going to be subject to special interest money. That's the key. That's my key. From the first day I heard he was running, this is exactly what we need. We need a man like Donald Trump, period. And don't let anybody get you off that focus. He won the nomination process. Nobody thought he was ever going to be able to pull that off, being an outsider, because everybody was going to be against him. Everybody was. And lo and behold, he won. He proved them all wrong. That's what Donald Trump does. He's a winner. He's a leader. He'll get the job done. He got the job done and get the nomination, and now they're coming out like crazy, just pounding up, trying to get him on every little single word he says and this and that. Don't lose focus, folks. Our country needs to turn this train around, and we need somebody fresh, somebody new, somebody that's an outsider, somebody that's going to kick over the desk in Washington, D.C. And Donald Trump is just the man to do that, and he's exactly what this country needs, exactly. Vote for Donald Trump. Don't vote for anybody else. A vote for someone else is a vote against making this country great again, and that would be pretty stupid if you think you're going to live in this country and depend upon it for whatever, for your own success, for their handouts to be economically viable, to be able to give you your welfare and food stamps. You better hope that Donald Trump gets elected, because the liberal progressive policies are going to break this country. And when the country's broken, like it really is right now with 20 trillion in debt, there's going to be no hope for a continuation of your welfare benefits and all your other stuff and handout and Santa Claus gifts you think you're going to get from the progressives. It's not going to be there. And that's been proven over and over and over again in history. It's proven with our own Social Security system, and Medicare's all predicted to go broke in a short period of time here. So I mean, the whole system is corrupted, it's breaking, it's going to go flat on its face. And if you vote for anybody but Donald Trump, you are jeopardizing not only your future, your kids' future, and the future of this country. So wake up and just vote for Donald Trump. Don't listen to anybody. Vote for the outsider. That's it. Nobody else is an outsider. Hillary Clinton is as inside as you can get. And don't ever forget it. Vote for Donald Trump. Thanks for listening.